Hi guys, welcome back to Bikes Republic. I'm Kashi Dillon and today we have the new Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. I've been really looking forward to riding this bike because the world's media has been raving about how much better it has been over the Tracer 900 GT. And it's true what they say, it's absolutely fantastic. Now for those of you not in the know, the Tracer variant is Yamaha's sports GT variants, whereas the Tenere are Yamaha's dual purpose machines. And truly, this does put the word sports in grand touring because this is a bike that really likes to corner and really likes to take you places fast. So in this video, I want to tell you everything there is to know about the new Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. So let's start with the sitting position of the Tracer 9 GT. As you can see, I'm actually quite comfortable. You know, in motorcycles, your height always matters. I'm about 6 feet tall. And I'm actually quite comfortable. I took this bike about on a 200 or 300 kilometer ride yesterday, and I gotta say, I was really comfortable. The seat is amazing. I've been reading that even Pillions have said that the pillion seat has been fantastic. I have no reason to doubt it because even the rider can get easily comfortable on this seat. The screen though, it's tall, it's manually adjustable. It's still new, so it takes some effort to manually adjust it. And I did find that it takes a bit of effort at highway cruising speed to adjust this with one hand. But it's not to say it's impossible, it just takes a bit of effort. And it's easily placeable wherever you want it. I did think that because of its design, there's a lot of air that comes around you, especially onto your arms. So if you're riding in typical Malaysian monsoon heat, you'll welcome the blast of air onto your arms because it really does cool you down. But at the same time, it tends to push your arms backwards. So after about an hour, or perhaps 2 hours worth of riding, you will tend to need a break. But other than that though, it does a fantastic job. Even at low height, this is perfect for when you're riding in the city. It's absolutely spot on, except for that little wind blast that comes onto your arms. The design of the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT is actually quite handsome. Now Yamaha says that it has readjusted some of these panels over here as compared to Tracer 900 GT to take the air away from your legs, especially when you're cruising at high speed. And it actually does work because you don't really feel a lot of air going around or pushing around your legs. So that's really nice. If you come back here, this is rather odd. Actually, it's not odd, it's quite common. There's no exhaust because the exhaust is placed over here. And if you're worried about going off-road, the Tracer 9 GT has about 135mm ground clearance, so that's plenty. Anyway, this is more sports oriented, so I don't think a lot of people will be taking this off-roading, but even if you need to do slight off-roading, you have plenty of ground clearance, so that's really great. This is the seat that I was telling you about. It's really nice. Big fat chunky seats. They are adjustable, so you can actually raise it by a couple of millimeters. It takes some effort. I won't be able to show you here because I tried doing it by myself earlier. I need somebody to show me how to do it, but yes, they are adjustable. And then if you come about here, there's not much going on. It's typical Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. This is the suspension to adjust the rear monoshock. I'll speak more about that later. And this is the dual TFT screens, color LED screens actually. So each one measures in at about 3.5 millimeters. I know a lot of people have been complaining that it doesn't look all that great, but to my eyes at least, I think it's fantastic. It does the purpose. And at first glance, it was a bit difficult because some of the fonts are quite small. But once you get used to the placement of everything, it's actually very easy to refer back to your speed, your gear position and such. The first time I rode it though, I kept mistaking the gear position for the drive mode that I was in, but I got over that. The one on the right though gives you non-essential data such as ambient temperature, current engine temperature, all of that sort. So that is, you can do without such data, so that's on the right. You can also customize that to tell you exactly what you want to know, like your fuel consumption, your average fuel consumption and such. Well, the ones on the left tells you things like your gear position, your speed, your RPM, your drive mode, all of that stuff. Onto the controls. So you might want to get closer for this. So this is where you get the ignition switch, your start stop button. This is your menu toggle over here to control the right hand side of the menu as well as the left. So this is great. I don't mind the position of this, and it's quite easily to navigate using this toggle, but this is where things get a little bit more confusing. See, the hazard light over here, this is where usually the horn is placed, and because it protrudes out a bit, especially when you're slicing through traffic, I found myself accidentally hitting this button instead of the horn button. So of course this cruise control, I love the cruise control feature on this. The other thing though, which I find a little bit confusing, because the highlight button is used on a lot of the other bikes. The highlight button is usually here. This is what you would use to highlight traffic, you know, but on the Tracer 9 GT it's placed here. This is usually a highlight, low light kind of thing, but even if you want to just dip the lights to tell people that you're coming and such, you know, to warn people, so this takes some getting used to. I have accidentally changed the drive modes thinking that I was actually flashing the light. So this thick chunky button over here, this is to select your drive mode, so that's very straightforward. And of course this is your ignition. Talking about drive modes, you get 4 different driving modes, 4 being the most laziest and 1 being more ballistic. Honestly, it's absolutely mental in number 1. Number 2, I find when I'm on traffic or in urban conditions, I like to be in mode, the second and third mode. I find that to be a very good balance. Well, number 1 is where you know, if you're out on the corners, you have no panniers. Number 1 is the mode that you want, but I'll speak more about that later. Then, of course, this is the screen that I was telling you about, manually adjustable. Then if you come to the front, these are not your headlights. These are your cornering lights. These work at above 5 kilometers per hour, and when the bike is leaned at more than 7 degrees, that is where these lights will turn on. This is the headlight, and it's not to say that this is not functioning. It is functioning actually, but with this design, it does look like something's not right, like it's not functioning. But let me show you. Now this is highlight, and this is what it looks like when you're passing traffic. Now it looks proper. Now it just looks like it's squinting. But anyway, it's a design that ultimately everybody gets used to, and most Tracer 9 GT owners will add on spotlights later on anyway. So it's a design that we all ultimately get accustomed to. It looks great, there's nothing wrong with it, it's fantastic. It's just something that we will all need to get used to. Now, let's talk about the technical part of it. Start with the tires and suspension. Tires for the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT are provided by the Bridgestone Batlex T32 Sport Touring tires. They're absolutely fantastic, and they suit the character of the Tracer 9 GT brilliantly. They're also very well adapted to Malaysian conditions, so they're very good to ride in wet as well as dry weather. They love to corner. In terms of grip, there's always plenty. In terms of stopping power, you get 298mm discs, and the calipers are Advix calipers, 4-piston Advix calipers, and they do a brilliant job at of course, stopping the bike. What I mean by brilliant is that they're not too sharp. You know, sometimes you tend to overbrake the bike, but they really suit the character of the Tracer 9 GT and bring you down to a stop. Of course, they're backed up by ABS as well as a lot of other electronic suites that I'll explain later. But in that terms, the Advix calipers as well as the 4-pot pistons, brilliant, and the overall braking feel of the Tracer 9 GT is not overly done, it's just at the sweet spot. And they suit the Bridgestone Batlex tires rather well actually. At the back you get the same Bridgestone Batlex tires, of course, measuring it at 180/55/17, nice and big, no dramas, brilliant in wet and dry. Then you get this rare monoshock with 137 millimeters of travel, also semi-active, and you get to control rebound with this device over here, hard to the right, soft to the left. This is what I was talking about earlier. You just got to adjust this in case you're carrying pillions or panniers. Makes the bike feel a lot more, a lot better, especially in corners, and it doesn't have that lift that I was telling you about earlier as well. So you can manage that through here. Talking about lift, the previous Tracer 900 GT was also very well known for high-speed lifts, or when you're really gunning it in corners, the front didn't have as much feel. How did Yamaha solve that besides the semi-active suspension? Well, they increased the length of the aluminium swing arm by 64 millimeters. Now, because of the longer swing arm, the bike actually feels a lot more stable in corners as well as high speed. Couple that with the semi-active Kayaba suspension, absolutely brilliant. Very simple solution to a very big problem. So let's talk about the engine as well as the handling characteristic, the Tracer 9 GT. But before we get to the engine, let's listen to how it sounds like. Check this out. Sounds brilliant, and when you couple this to the two-way quick shifter, which comes as standard by the way, it's actually phenomenal the way the Tracer 9 GT sounds like. And that's not surprising. Let's not forget that Yamaha, before they actually started creating motorcycles, they were actually making music. They still do today. Let's not forget that when Lexus created the LFA, they actually sent the LFA to Yamaha to make it sound better. And that way, the Tracer 9 GT also sounds fantastic. And let's talk a bit about the engine. So when Yamaha created the Tracer 9 GT, they said it's almost 100% new as compared to the Tracer 900 GT. Why do I say almost? Well, there's about 90% of this bike is all new, except for the 10%, which is roughly found around here, the engine. It's just about the same engine as before. Of course, this is the same engine that you find in the MT-09 because ultimately this is a bike that's based on the MT-09, but that's a different story. About the engine, in the Tracer 900 GT, it created a displacement of about 849, 847 cc. My mind fails me that I can't really remember. But in this bike, it weighs in, or rather the displacement comes in at about 890 plus cc. So it's actually a beefed up version of what we previously found in the Tracer 900 GT. And boy, what an engine it is. It's fantastic. It creates about 116 horsepower at a screaming 10,000 RPM. And it creates 93 Newton meters of torque at 7,000 RPM. When you're going through traffic, when you're slicing through traffic, very rarely do you need to shift down. And even when you do, you don't even need to use the clutch because quick shifter, that's a very intelligent quick shifter that's coupled to the engine, because even in corners, it'll cut engine power very quickly just to give you that smooth shift, very quick shifts as well. The engine is phenomenal. It sounds really great as well. And the crankshaft on the new engine is actually slightly heavier than before, and this gives the bike a very cruiser-like feel. Of course, it's still ballistic, it's still mental on the highways, but it's actually very nice, very high revving engine over here, and I think it's brilliant. It's more sports than touring, but this is a bike that can take you almost anywhere except off-roading perhaps. So riding the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT is quite an occasion. Okay, the system gives you two different riding modes actually. So number one and number two. I do wish that they would have named it something else, because if you were like me and you just had somebody pass you the keys the only way you would know what each mode stood for was to try it yourself. But if rather you had Sport and Road, for example, then you would have known what those modes stood for. So mode 1 is where it's actually more sporty, but mode 2 is more comfortable and is better suited to daily riding and with the pillion. But then again, for each mode you get 4 different driving modes, and like I said earlier, the number 1 is when it's completely ballistic, and number 2 is better suited for touring. But because the bike is quite intelligent by itself, you can also adjust how sensitive you want other things to be. Other things like traction control, wheelie control, all of these have 3 different settings. So if you like to slide, the bike will oblige. But this really is a bike that is more sporty in nature. Of course, as you can see, it offers a very comfortable sitting position, and you could actually go touring on it. But the thing that this really is built for is sports. And as I said, it puts sports in touring, because underneath it all is still an MT-09. And we all know how the MT-09 performs really well, doesn't it? Well, this bike is the same, except that it has a couple of features that make it better suited for touring. What features? Well, of course, the sitting position, the longer swing arm, the taller ride height. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't like to corner, because this chassis still is a sport bike underneath it all. It's more rigid, and of course it's lighter. It's about 1-point-something kgs lighter than what it was in the Tracer 900. Basically 1-point-something kg lighter than before. But when the road really starts to offer you a lot of corners, well, as they say, when life gives you corners, tackle them. So that's that for you. Everything you need to know about the Yamaha Tracer 9 GT. It's a fantastic machine, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's like I said earlier, it's more sports than touring, but hey, if you need a bike to take you places fast and you want to sometimes enjoy the corners along the way, this is a bike that does almost everything that you'll need it to do. Well, at a little under 70,000 ringgit, I really can't find fault with this. It's brilliant, it's well suited to almost everything you need, and it comes in a very handsome design as well. If you like what you see here today, of course, do consider subscribing to our channel, and we'll work to bring you more awesome videos. Yamaha Tracer 9 GT, this is Bikes Republic. Thank you for watching.